Welcome, dadas all over Kenya and East Africa. Thank you for watching us. We are honored that you watch us every Sunday at 4 p.m. on KBC Channel 1. Thank you again for tuning, for going to our YouTube page, for Facebook, and thank you for reaching out to us. Today we want to end the topic about relationships. Not really end it. You can never really end the topic on relationships. But we want to kind of conclude it. We've done dating, we've done weddings, and now we want to talk about marriage. But we want to have a different format. We want to do frequently asked questions. What are the things that trouble people when they are in marriage or getting into marriage, and sometimes getting out of marriage? So today I'm joined by Jane and Emmanuel, and I want them to introduce themselves. The reason I do this is because I'm told I introduce people very badly. So we'll start with you, Jane.
All right. Yes, thank you very much for inviting me to this show. My name is Jane Ruben and I'm a counseling psychologist. I'm also a trainer and I practice as a therapist as well.
Okay.
Yes.
So you have a big title.
Yes.
Counseling psychologist,
and a trainer.
And
a therapist.
Yes. Okay, you'll tell us what all those things are.
I will.
Excellent. Thank you very much for having me on the show. I'm excited to be here. My name is Emmanuel Gashanja. I am the founder and CEO of iVow, which is an organization that speaks to marriages and the family as a whole. But I'm also a pastor and a counseling psychologist. And I'm excited to be here. I'm passionate about marriage and the family setup in society. Yeah.
Now, I wanted to start with you, Pastor Emmanuel.
Yes.
Is marriage a pain point nowadays? Because everywhere I go, I just hear people mourning the institution. Is the institution, and how bad are things?
They
are very bad.
Yeah, the truth is yes. The answer is yes. It is a pain point. There's a lot of marriages that are struggling. There's so many marriages that are failing. There's so many things that are happening within the marriage setting that are not supposed to be happening within the marriage setting. So yes, to answer your question, yes, it is a huge pain point, to the point that society is giving up on marriage. A lot of people don't believe in it. Even within the church setting, the Christians are giving up on marriage, and even some of the clergy are actually giving up on marriage.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jane, you have people coming to your office, or you meet with people.
Yes.
What do they say about the institution?
Yes, others are saying they wish they knew they wouldn't even have gotten into it in the first place. But I think it's a matter of how one feels about that institution. As a counseling psychologist, then I would come in and want to understand, so what was your expectation? Because then the marriage becoming a pain or a point where there's a lot of pain, then that means there are either unmet needs or something is not right about what you had foreseen it to be. Yes.
Which brings me to question number one.
Yes.
How do we know Mr. Right or Mrs. Right? So I'll ask you, Mrs. Right. How do we know them? Because, a young man could be dating 3-4 girls.
Yeah.
And he wants to settle down.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you look at the person he chose, eventually you're like,
Yeah.
why did you choose that one? Out of the 3 good women, you chose that one. So how do you know Mrs. Right?
Yeah. I think that's a very difficult question to respond to. I personally feel there is no Mr. Right and there is no Mrs. Right. I don't believe there's a soulmate. I strongly believe that you become that as you enter into the institution and do the work and work towards that. I strongly feel that's what it is. And I think that's what we mistake. We put this expectation, as she said, of Mr. Right, Mrs. Right, and during the marketing stage, which is the dating, they'll do all the right things, they'll do all the right things, say all the right things, they'll get you into that thing we call the box. And once you're in the box, and then you're settled, then you say, I do, and put that ring, with this ring I thee wed, there's that tendency that we now return to default setting. And then we feel like we were played or gypped, like, what is this? I didn't see this side of you. And then, marriage suddenly becomes a sham.
So there's no Mr. Right. So Hollywood have sold us a narrative that's not true.
I strongly believe so, because even when I look at my marriage, it's just now that I'm becoming Mr. Right. I've been married, it'll be 18 years in March. It's just now that I'm becoming Mr. Right. Before I was figuring out myself. So we had to go through, figure out who we are, how compatible we are, learn a lot of things. Now is when I can actually relax and say, you know what, now I'm enjoying this and living my best life in marriage. And I believe my wife feels the same too.
18 years later.
18 years later. Yeah. I mean, it has happened over the last 5 years. But they say in marriage it has stages. There's the dream stage,
yes,
where you're all, starry-eyed about each other. Then after the dream stage comes the drama stage, where you're trying to figure out and, trying to iron out all the rough edges so that you can be smooth. Then now comes the discovery, and then finally the depth stage. So in the discovery, which I feel is where we are, is when now you get to enjoy, really, really enjoy your partner, because now you understand, you have a better understanding of each other.
Jane,
yes.
18 years later, is when Mr. Right is showing up. What do you have to say? How do you meet Miss? So I'll ask you,
yes.
Mr. Right. What does he look like?
Well, I cannot figure out a Mr. Right.
Yeah.
For me, maybe coming from a counseling perspective, it has to be psychological. What is this that you want in a man, the Mr. Right? What are some of the expectations you want? What are some of the obligations you would want from a man? And whichever matches or comes closer to what you want, probably that is what you would call, quote unquote, right for you. And then you make sure it is also working for you, because you do not expect him to be right when you're seated in your own cocoon and you're not doing anything to perfect.
Okay, so Mrs. Right must meet Mr. Right.
Kinda, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
But can I add to
please,
that?
Yeah.
Yes.
I like what she has said. And I think when you're going into marriage, it's important to have the right conversations.
Yes.
And the right conversations will center on the pillars, I guess, that make the foundation of what marriage is. So what are your values? What do they believe in? What do they align with what you believe in? Spiritually, what are their values? Financially, what do they, believe in? And things like that. I think those are important. But unfortunately for us, what matters most is, are they doing well? What matters most is, are they, looking good?
I know. Do they look the part?
Are they easy on the eyes, as they say?
Easy on the eye.
Yeah. Well, we forget what really matters is the software, not the hardware. The hardware will fade.
Yeah.
So you constantly looking for somebody who has the right software, and I think that's where she says, psychologically, spiritually, those things that we can't see, the intangibles. And I always say, look for somebody who's constantly willing to learn, willing to change, and willing to grow.
Wow.
So
willing to learn, change, and grow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. If you marry somebody stubborn, your drama stage will be much longer.
Yeah. Or you may not live through the drama stage.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So find somebody again with the values, but always willing to learn, constantly willing to grow. That's the most important.
Okay. From what I hear, Jane, marriage, we get into marriage not thinking it's work. I don't know. I get the feeling that we get into marriage thinking that, once the wedding is over, we can all, and then it will just sort itself out.
Yes.
How true is that?
That is not true at all. I mean, the day you plant is not the day you harvest. So you really got to work for it, isn't it? In the same way, if you want a happy marriage, you have to work for it. You're going to work for it. And so then it is actually a continuous process that don't just stop with having gotten married, probably gone to honeymoon. And once you are done, you now start thinking that things will be falling in place anyhow. You actually have a lot of work to do for the marriage to work.
Mr. Emmanuel?
Yeah.
Work needs to go in.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that's not what we are taught.
That's not what we are taught.
We are told that once you get married,
Yeah.
we all go back to our real selves.
No,
we stop
actually.
pretending, we just go back, we start having children, it's okay.
The narrative actually that's sold before you get married is you get married, then you live your happily ever after.
Yes, oh yes,
That's the
yes,
narrative
yes,
that's
and
sold.
they lived happily ever
And they
after.
lived happily. In fact, all the movies we watch, every series we watch, there's always the happily ever after.
Yes.
But they never talk about now from day one,
Yes.
what begins to happen.
Yes.
Allow me to give this analogy I shared one time. I was going through the internet and I saw this picture of this garden and I really loved the garden. It was so beautiful, had flowers, well manicured, fantastic grass, trees and everything. And then, when I was looking at it, I remembered that phrase they say,
The grass.
the grass is greener
On the other side.
on the other side. Yeah, but the truth is, in order for your garden to be constantly green, you have to keep, planting seed, planting fertilizer. You have to keep trimming. You have to keep pruning. You have to shape, watering.
Yes.
Watering. And it's important to water.
Yes.
And that's where, the work is. So you have to constantly do that for your garden to be. And that's exactly this analogy of what marriage is. The work that you have to put into. Just think about it, even from the beginning, even setting the foundation of that, you have to, architecturally put it together that you'll move this earth on this side and have all these tools to help you put that garden together. So it is important for you to consider that even as you get married, or even once you're in marriage, that I have to put in the work in order for my garden to look good. Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to dive into questions that I got
Yes.
for you guys. So one person asked me, what are the key things that they need to know before they enter the institution? Are there some things that you just need to kind of have an idea of? Jane?
Yes, I think before even marriage, we talk about prima. There is need, and I think this is key, because you will realize later in the marriage, the dramas and everything else that Emmanuel is talking about will come because of the finances. So one of the things that I think is key and mandatory to do is to be able to disclose all your assets, maybe, or your money, any liability you have, any baggage that you're bringing in. People get into marriages with also background, or the family of origin has some sort of baggage on you, like you're taking care of your sisters, your brothers, your cousins, and that kind of thing. So share all these concerns with your spouse before even entering into this marriage. So then once you are in, you probably have known, then how do we deal with this kind of a thing? Because one of the things that brings jitters into a marriage is when something crops up. We can call it like information that is coming up. We didn't know it before, we didn't have it before. So this information is sort of being released in piecemeals, kidogo kidogo. That is what is going to bring
Bombs are just exploding.
Yeah. You stay and then you're here. No, I'm supposed to be paying for my sister 20,000. You stay a bit. My grandmother wants 50,000. These are things like bombshells all the time. So talk about, before marriage and before you get into this institution, talk about all the right things to do.
Wow. Yeah.
Bombshells are coming up.
Bombshells
there
are
could be
coming
other
up.
bombshells except money, like I have a child.
Yeah.
Those come up, especially men bring them up.
Yeah.
Like we are married 2
But
years.
even women do.
Even women.
Let me tell you,
I
I've
had a
dealt with
child
some
from another
cases.
marriage.
Yeah, I've dealt with some cases where women date and they go all the way to marriage, but because they didn't want to be not accepted because they've had a child before, they kept quiet about it. To reveal it after, which is a bombshell. But anyway, to answer your question, I think it's a long process. Earlier on, I was sharing you about what we do at IVOW, and we talk to singles. One of the things I've realized is, as singles, first of all, we do not understand that we require our own wholeness. Our own wholeness is spiritual, mental, and stuff like that. Now, one of the things I've realized is that a lot of us now, unfortunately, in this generation, are growing up in broken homes, where we are not seeing both father figure and mother figure in the home. Or if they're there, it's very contentious. And then our relatives, also, it's not like that. In public, in the society as a whole, we're not having this, we're not seeing the ideal picture of what marriage is. So a lot of us already have a distorted idea of what marriage is. So I think it's important for us to take time to understand what is marriage, and learning it according to whoever the author of marriage is. I believe it's God, so I always say, go back and understand, what does God say about it? Then the second one is self-awareness. Understanding who you are, understanding your personalities. Let me tell you a story. 11 years into marriage, we always constantly had fights with my wife. And then we went through this program that Mavuno offers. And the first class was on personalities.
Is it Ndoa?
Ndoa, yes. So the first class was on personalities. Oh my God, I realized I have a personality temperament called I am a phleg, and my wife is a choleric. We are two opposite people. That explains everything.
But that's the reason you're attracted to each other.
But that's it's the but
and
you
it's
see,
the reason you are killing each other in the marriage.
opposites attract, but opposites also attack. So it was our biggest reason for. But because we did not know, we were ignorant that there's this thing called personality. I always thought she's one way, and she thought I was, and we're just like, Annie, I got. This guy was so nice before, but now he's so. It's important to understand or get self-awareness of who you are. And then now, secondly, is now begin to have the right conversations of, what will you stand for? In-laws and outlaws. How are we going to deal with them?
Oh yeah, I was going to come to them. Thank you for bringing them up.
So in-laws and outlaws, how do you deal with them? How do you deal with finances? As she said, how do you grow your intimacy? Intimacy is not just physical intimacy, the sex part, but it's also emotional intimacy. It's also, what do you call it? Social intimacy. How do you handle that? How do you handle the fact that, you're moving from roses to dishes?
What?
Yeah.
Roses to dishes.
And then communication. What kind of communication styles? How do you communicate effectively? Are you a runner? Are you a fighter? What are you? It's important to know all these things. And then before marriage, decide this is how we're going to engage with each other.
How important is it for the people who are coming to marriage to know that they're in it forever? I know this used to be there a long time ago. Our parents were in it through thick and thin and through poverty and I don't know what. But I think these days people get into marriage and they think, if this doesn't work, I'll go back home.
Yeah. So I think it's very important. Again, when you're making that vow is a covenant that you're making. A covenant is binding. A covenant is not a contract. A lot of people say it's just paper. No. It's more than just paper. This is a covenant. And the moment you say, I do, you actually are considered one. Not just spiritually, but also even by law. You as the woman take on the man's name. Then you're called the Njaos, you're called the Karaokes, you're called the Omondis, you're called whatever it is, but that's who you are. And it's recognized as that. And I think we need to understand that this is an eternal thing and an eternal bond that's formed. And I think it's important that we realize that it's something that we need to work on. And how good or how bad it will be depends on both of you, not just one partner. Yeah.
So
maybe the same to probably try and understand more. You see, marriage will actually affect quite a number of aspects in one's life. So then I think it would be very, very important for the two of you to discuss. If you think there are many things that probably will come your way, if you think you're short-tempered, then probably this might not be. There's a way you can say, I'm from this place and this is what we do, this is how we do it. Yeah, and maybe that would be nice to discuss, that this is who I am. Sometimes I spark, sometimes I do this, and have a way of handling it. Because as he says, it's a covenant. I mean, before you say I do, before committing to the same, then you would really want to understand that I am here to stay. Like
there's no exit. Yeah,
there's no exit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So I wanted to ask about the in-laws. So I want to ask a question that I was asked by a friend of mine to ask you. How much influence should in-laws have in the marriage? She was complaining bitterly that her husband is always consulting the mother.
Yeah.
Like the mother should just move in because the mother is always there. She's always being consulted. She's always giving her opinion. And I think they are about 5 years in marriage. She's exasperated. Yeah. So how much should the in-laws get involved?
Maybe to start with, the first thing should be these two people who are married or who are getting married, they should know they're just the two of them. That is first. And it is mandatory for them to understand that this is our union. So now when there's a third party coming in, even at the church you're told the third one is a what? Is death.
Till death do us part.
Exactly. So then you come in where people are united, then something wrong is happening.
Okay.
So then the first thing probably that should be discussed is, or that should be known, I don't know if this is common knowledge or they should have discussed, is that ni sisi wawili. If there's any problem, let's talk about it. And then tip number one maybe to how to deal with in-laws, it would be important for you to be there for your spouse. You know, like, do not put them in a situation whereby they have to choose between you
And their mom.
or their dad or whoever else. You know, like, fight for them. Yes, it is your mom, it is your dad, it is your who, depending with whoever it is the in-law. Then it is important for you to really protect that person. So in a sense, work with your spouse to be able to work out this kind of a relationship. That's what I would advise.
I think, first of all, for me, I would say the first thing is to just realize, to grant each other grace, first of all. The unfortunate or fortunate thing is we do come from these families. These families are very much a part of us. In fact, probably before we got married, much longer than you. So this is the system that we are used to. So it's important to grant grace that, yes, we are connected to this family, but at the same time, I strongly believe, and it's interesting because I believe that a man leaves his father and mother and cleaves to his wife, and they build their own home. I've seen a lot of men who, because they are mama's boys, and a lot of mothers have this tendency to lean on their sons, because maybe with their husband it didn't work out, but there's this one who love unconditionally, who'll be there unconditionally, and you know, at my own beck and call, I will call him,
and he comes running.
He will come running, and he will do whatever it is. I think it's important for men to set a boundary. I know I had to do that. It was painful, but I had to do that.
The mom, you know, African moms have this thing of, how can you do this to me? I'll curse you. Then they start crying, you know. When they start crying, you know you are finished.
Yeah, that's it. But I think you need to also be able to find a way to explain it well. That your marriage comes first. I have left home, and this is what comes first. My wife comes first. In fact, nowadays, if they want anything, I said, let me go and consult with my wife first. And I think it's the same for her.
They don't say you've been Kaliwad.
Yeah.
Passy.
Even though they say, let me tell you, even though they say, I don't care, I'm not sleeping in their homes. This is the home that I'm going to. And you know, they say, I need peace in this home. And you know, there's that saying, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. So it's important for me. Say what you want. Yes. You can say I'm a kaliwa chapati, you can say whatever. That's okay. That's your problem. It's not my problem. My problem is at home I have peace and I'm living in unity with my spouse. Yeah. And together we are forging life ahead. So that's what's most important. And I think that's the mistake that we made. We are so conscious of what everybody thinks, what everybody feels. So we don't do the right thing. We are trying to please too many people, and guess what's failing? The most important part of your life. Because if this is failing, if your marriage is failing, guess what? Everything else is affected. Everything else. Everything else. Whether it's your work, whatever it is, business, everything else is affected.
Okay.
I think in that particular one, Pauline,
yes.
You know, when he says mom calls and you're running.
Yes.
You see, there's a complex that is pulling this guy to the mom.
Yes.
And it is actually only him who can be able to cut this kind of a thing.
Exactly.
How? By enforcing maybe the boundaries and the limits.
Yeah.
And then kinda you don't shift your gun. Stay put. You can have a way of talking to mommy and saying, it's okay, mom, when you call, I will come, but also realize. So it doesn't seem like it is going to be a war, because then there's a way you can put this, and then she becomes an enemy of everybody else in the family.
Yes.
Yeah, so it is important for the man to be wise and be able to strike sort of a balance between him and his wife and his family, and also the other part where the mother is involved and the sisters.
Okay.
Yeah, so it is important to do that.
I don't know if we have enough time to delve into this, but I wanted to ask about, you talked about it, intimacy.
Yes.
This is important.
Very.
Now, I had a question from a gentleman. This was from a gentleman, and he said that his wife, they've been married for 6.5 years, and now there's no sex. And he's at the point of looking for another relationship. what should he do? Now, I'm told we've run out of time, so I'll leave that there.
Yeah.
I'll leave that there because we are coming back to intimacy and then back to money. So dadas, don't go too far. Get yourself something to drink. We'll be right back. Welcome back, dadas. Today we are talking about relationships and marriage, and we're talking about, we left, the first half of the show, we left something hanging out there, which is about intimacy in marriage. And I'm joined again, not again, but I'm joined by Jane and Emmanuel.
Yes.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And you've really shed light on some interesting things.
Yeah.
And before we went on a break, I was talking about a friend of mine. So I'll repeat the question. A friend of mine has been married for 6.5 years, and he's frustrated that they have 2 children, and the wife seems extremely busy.
Yeah.
And the one thing that he seems to be not getting any of his sex.
Yeah.
And so he was asking whether it's okay for him to pursue this matter elsewhere.
Yeah.
Because if he continues like this, he will probably kill his wife.
Yeah.
So Emmanuel, I'll start with you.
Yeah.
Since I know you can feel him.
Me, I can't feel him. But I'll say this. Unfortunately, it's more common than it should be. I really feel like what happens in marriage is, again, that whole thing I'd mentioned in the first segment where we were talking about, this is your garden. You need to till it. You need to work it. We stop doing that and expect that it is automatic. You see, for a man, it's easy to get turned on and to desire sex. For a woman, it's a little bit more work. If children are involved, by the time you're done with the children and sorting the children, by the time you've even gone to work, you're so emotionally drained, you're so emotionally finished, physically finished, that sex is the last thing that a woman would desire. And unfortunately, the man is like a microwave, the sex is pop, pop. But for a woman, it's like an oven, so it takes a while to build up to that. And you pray in the middle of the building up, nothing happens to destroy that mood.
Yeah, so you could have built it up and then,
yeah, I know.
comes down.
Yeah. So what I believe they should do is, one, first of all, have a conversation. Find out from your wife, why are you in this stage? And ask the question from a place of trying to understand how can you support and help your wife to get there. But it goes 2 ways. Sometimes it's the women, and the man just, because of stresses of life, he just does not desire to do it. So it's important to ask and find out, even before you go to see a psychologist or a therapist, ask, what's going on. It could be something as simple as, you know what, you don't even compliment me anymore. You don't make me feel good. Guess who's making her feel good? The people at the office who see her walking in, oh, today that's a new dress. Oh my God, you look cute. And then she's feeling nice. But at home, all you're doing is, let her chakula, let her this. And then you're expecting this woman to, no. It doesn't work that way. You have to put in the work, understand what her love languages is, understand how to make love to her. And by making love, I don't mean sex. I mean the precursors to sex that will get her into that space to even desire being with you and to engage with you.
Jane?
Yes.
Do you have any shots fired?
Yeah, I think for me, first and foremost, is being able to talk about sex in marriage.
Yeah.
Is actually a step forward towards maybe sexual satisfaction and any other connection in the family.
Yeah.
Because there is no sex, there is mood all over. A person is moody, you are this way, you are that way. In the office, if there's a cat, you go kicking cats all over, and
You're
stuff
angry.
happens, you're
Yeah.
angry, yes. So one of the things is probably to look at the right time, because clearly if there is a shortage somewhere, then there's an issue, it's a problem. So probably the question would be asking ourselves, so how do we talk about it? When do we talk about it? And one of the key things is to understand that you do not even talk about sex matters inside the bedroom. because then that will kill the mood clearly. So look for a neutral place where probably you can talk, and maybe even as you're talking about it, do not look like you're blaming the other person.
Yeah.
Look at it from a perspective where it's a problem with us,
Yeah.
and we need to feel connected. And actually, even as we talk about sex, don't start with it nowadays you're not doing it right, or you're not that kind of a thing. Start from an importance of wanting to feel closer and more connected. That way someone will pay attention. So you want to feel closer to me, you want to feel connected to me. That way, then even when you're breaking it or you're bringing the bombshell, as it were, then it's gonna be easy for you to be able to penya. Yep.
Okay, I'll leave that there. I'll leave that there. Is there, like, can we seek physical help? I just wanted to end with that. I don't want to.
Yes, we can.
Is there a point at which we say, okay, this is no longer emotional, maybe it's physical? Where do we go?
Yes, sometimes it's physical,
Yeah.
because, like, for example, if the man has what we call ED,
Yeah.
or erectile dysfunction, then that's something that you can be helped medically.
Okay.
Otherwise, most of the problem, I always feel, is like an emotional thing and just a mindset thing that you need to work out. Like she said, have the conversation. In fact, in pre-marriage, people don't even have that conversation. It is assumed. So we go into it having not had and having our own expectations. So we go in and it's not what we would have, what we expected, and so we're just like,
This thing doesn't work.
This thing doesn't work.
Let's concentrate on other things.
Let's focus, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I also want to talk about money.
Yeah.
Now this is from somebody who actually reached out online, and they said, Pauline, I grew up with my father and my mother, and my father left my mother, and we went through a really bad time. And so I don't believe in sharing money, disclosing my financial situation. It's a lady, and I always save my own money on the side. Is there a problem with that?
I think there's a huge problem.
Okay.
It's a huge problem. I think it's actually more common, again,
Really?
than we can say.
It's marriage.
It's very common.
It's on the rocks.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
and you can understand where the lady is. She's coming from
I
a
get
background
it.
of trouble.
Yes.
So in her opinion,
Yeah.
if she pays, if they agree, you pay the rent, I pay the,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
she keeps her side of the bargain,
Yeah.
then she can keep the money.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest things that we make a mistake. I think in marriage we are one, and we are united towards a common goal. And it's important for us to sit and discuss what's this common goal, what's our mission. So we divert all our resources, including financial resources, towards that common goal. I think the unfortunate thing, again, is, even you highlighted it, is that because she saw it, this is what has formed what she thinks of marriage, because she experienced it in the past. And it goes with every aspect of marriage. Because of things we're exposed to, that's what we come into marriage with. I think it would be a big red flag. And if you had the right conversations prior to marriage and say, sex, this is what we're doing. For finances, what are we doing? This is what we are achieving. This is what we want to achieve. This is my individual goal. This is our goal together. And it's important to divert our resources. And then also it keeps you accountable. I've seen the men who normally have a little side money, they do crazy things.
Yeah, they
and
blow it
so
all,
do the
isn't it?
women.
Yeah.
So do the women who do that. And it's interesting. I had an insurance broker talk to me the other day, and they were saying that when it comes to inheritance, men put their wives on there, but women do not put their husband.
Yes.
They put their children on there. So I was just like, that's a huge disconnect. It tells me there's a problem, and a foundational problem within that marriage. If you can't trust, then why are you in this? Did you marry the right person? Did you do it for the right reasons? So that's my take on it.
So your take is we put it all in one pot, and we decide how we are going to spend it.
It doesn't all have to be in one pot.
Okay.
I can have my account, my wife can have her account. but we have the goals. This is what we do with our money.
Yeah.
We both bring a combined income of this.
Yeah.
We will pay the rent, we will pay the school fees, we will pay the bills. Then we will put this towards investment. If you're church people, we tithe to church. If we are people who like to give towards, orphans and whatever, the needy, we do that. But then we also put this amount for savings and this amount for retirement. So there's a formula in which we're supposed to financially use our finances, our money.
Yeah.
So it's important for us to be in unity, so that we can actually achieve those goals.
So there's full disclosure.
So
That's
there's
what you're saying.
full disclosure.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. It's when you start having your own kitties. That's they always say that's where now sin begins to abide, and the crazy darkness begins to abide. Yeah.
Okay. Jane?
Yeah, for me, I don't believe in having some money for a rainy day. Yes.
Thank you for putting it like that. It actually sounds so sensible.
Yeah.
Money for a rainy day.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this rainy day might even come when you're not even able to go and withdraw this money or to even get it. Take for instance, probably, God forbid, you get an accident and you're in the hospital, you might not even make it, but you have a few millions you have put somewhere. No one knows about them, not even your children, I mean, it's gonna go to the trustee. Your family will never get benefit from all that money. So would you say from the word go, and the point of departure should be, everything in that marriage should be in plain black and white. Of course, I know there are not many people who are going to agree with me, but that's a fact of life. Because at that point where you will feel like, I will want this money to do something, that can actually be a point where you have perforated it. Because then the moment your partner realizes that you have been keeping something, you lose trust. That's for sure. He doesn't trust you, so he doesn't know what else have you kept away from me, or what else has she kept away from me when the man realizes, or vice versa. So you go bridging, you go making sure that you put patches where there are potholes, so then you don't have this kind of a thing. So this money that you're going to keep, probably keep and save. Not necessarily putting together in one basket like Emmanuel says. If you can, fine. But you also talk about it. What financial obligations do we have? We have school fees, we have this. Then this is a question of probably the lady earning more than the man.
Yes, I actually, thank you, Jane, for bringing that up. I had actually forgotten.
Yes.
There's a new phenomenon in town where the ladies earn quite a lot of money, and the boy child, I'm not sure what happened.
Poor boy child.
And the poor boy child is now being harassed.
Yes.
I have a case in point I was sharing with Jane, where the guy has been told to move out because he has nothing. He doesn't bring home money for a whole year. He was told to pack his belongings and leave.
He's the easier one.
He's the easier one to leave because anyway he doesn't pay rent.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem to own much.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's easier for him to just leave and go somewhere. And the lady said, once you find a place, you can come and collect a few things from here and start your life again.
Yeah, you see, whenever I hear something like that, for me, what it symbolizes is that I had what was mine and you had what was yours. So it was okay when yours was there, but now that yours is not there, then it's an issue because now mine is being infringed on. There's nothing like mine and yours in marriage. It's ours. So what I bring in goes to the entire pot. What she brings in goes to the entire pot. We are raising a family together, and it's the unit. It's not individuals. So if my wife is making more than me, all the more better. I celebrate her and I cheer her on, because the truth is that it's coming back to the pot. Who is she taking care of? She's taking care of my children. She's taking care of our home. She's taking care of things that pertain to us. And in like manner, if I'm the one who is making more, it's the same. If I don't have a check and she doesn't have a check, does that mean we kick each other out? No. We work together. You see, unfortunately, we make issues about the person and not issues about issues. So we are not together fighting this issue. For example, in that case, they are not fighting the issue of the fact that maybe he might be jobless, or his business might have gone down. They're not fighting that issue and figuring out how can we get this guy to earn some whatever. Instead, it's like, you're a problem. There's no money. You're not bringing money. So we fight you. So that only affects her relationship. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't realize that divorce is one of the most painful things that anyone could go through. In fact, some even say it's even worse than death. Because at least death, there's closure. We see you going in the ground, we put soil over you, so there's closure. With the divorce, there's no closure. This person has to constantly be there for the rest of your life. So unless you get supernatural healing, it becomes very difficult to get over that. So a lot of people don't realize, let's work to be one in everything. Whether there's money, whether there's no money. Just think about it. The richest people you'll meet are some of the most frustrated people with all that wealth. So it's not the answer. It's not the answer. But you can find some people without money. And these are the happiest people. They are so excited about going to Mombasa and staying at a Roach motel, and they will have fun. And they will make the most of it. So I think it's just important to just reprioritize whatever is important. And
for me, I consider that as maybe selfishness, for lack of a better word. Because you can imagine, there may have been a time this man was like taking care of the family, including you, maybe not having worked before. And now, because he's not able to bring money home for whatever reason, retrenchment and anything else, or everything else, then you consider him as a liability. I consider that as self-centeredness, with all manner of words. Now, this is how I look at it. If anyone should lose a job and a lady is left working, you only need to re-strategize, reorganize yourselves. And probably in a better situation, maybe this man is able to get some few coins here and there. So let him feel like the man. So let's talk about it. Okay, I earn 100,000, you have 20,000. So can I do the bigger things? The person earning more money does the bigger things. Maybe we have a bigger dream we are chasing. Maybe we want to buy a house. Maybe we want to do a shamba somewhere. We want to buy a big car, that kind of a thing. So can we agree to take care of that? And consciously keep remembering that you don't have to keep saying, I have done it. Talk about the we. Because if you personalize it as I, then that loses the meaning. And it will make even the man to feel inferior. You're causing a lot of emotional baggage. So then, can this couple have a discussion? Other than having to throw this man out. The kids, if you don't need this man, the kids need the man. It's their father to cry out loud. So then work out a way that if you're able to give us if you're able to take just care of the grocery, buy nyanya, even if nasikia nyanya siku hizi inacheza ligi ya apple, it is now under the league of apples. So if you're able to buy nyanyas, please come with nyanyas, a kilo of sugar to take that day, that kind of a thing. Allow him to feel like the man in the house, because some rules will never change. He will still remain to be the head of that house. So can we work out a strategy where that instance happens? And then of course, if there's a problem, go for counseling. That's why we are there, to be able to help these people process whatever else that they are going through. And remember, this is something we said from the word go, disclosing everything. So then we would not be having these problems. Because if we had set out ourselves at the very beginning and said, I earn 100,000, you're at 20,000. So how shall we go about this? Communication from the word go, and this is going to be okay.
My last question to you is, I have a friend of mine who asked me to ask you this question. They have no big problems with their husband. They've had a 10-year marriage, but she's very bored. She's extremely tired of being married. They are like brother and sister. They live in the same house. They don't talk much. And although everything is going well, looks very well, she says their marriage is dead. How do we keep the spark alive in marriage? Jane.
Wow. Yes. Interesting. it's amazing that that was like a fire that just burnt and then it's down. So they probably need to reignite it. An open conversation for me would do. I would want them to walk up to where the rain started beating them. You know, like it was good until this point. Because you realize there's something that has happened or something happened somewhere that wasn't talked about. It went on, maybe it was swept under the carpet. Nobody talked about it. Maybe it was a small difference, and now an until has become a mountain. So them to talk, and probably if need be, then let them seek some professional help.
What she said is exactly what they need to do. Have the conversation, find out where the problems began, and then again remember, this garden, where did you stop putting the fertilizer? Where did you stop watering it? Because marriage is a continuous pursuit of each other, a continuous pursuit of your, purpose with each other. I mean, your greater purpose. And if you are constantly doing that, then it keeps that fire burning, and it keeps, you guys engaged and, stimulated with each other. Yeah.
This is my own question.
Yes.
What reasons can you give to say this marriage cannot continue?
Well,
yeah. I mean, are there reasons that are so big that you are like, okay, this marriage needs to take a rain check. We need to stop it now.
Yeah. Now, it's actually a frequently asked question. And a lot of people ask, what does the Bible say about it? Does God really hate divorce? The truth is, the Bible says God hates divorce. When Jesus was asked about it, he says, well, the one out you can get is when there is infidelity or adultery. But then he said, even that was given to you because of your hard-headedness. So really, basically, the word of God doesn't support divorce. However, it still happens. I always say, even with adultery, there's plenty of room for reconciliation, because adultery is a sin as much as a lie, or even a white lie, which is considered a small lie. It's just as much a sin as that. Okay. So I think it's you can reconcile. I think when there's battery in the marriage, I think it's important to separate, to stay away from each other. And I think it's important for one of the partner, especially the one who is doing the battery, to seek counseling or medical help from a professional psychiatrist, psychologist, just to work through their issues. Because again, all these are issues that we've been exposed to in the past, and these are just presenting issues of an underlying issue. So I always feel it's important, find out what the bottom line is, find out what the root cause is, deal with that, and hopefully what will manifest will be more love than more hate. Okay. Yeah.
So in your book, perhaps abuse and then back to reconciliation.
Yes, I would say separate, but reconciliation. Okay. Yes.
Jay?
Wow. For me, I don't know if you would separate with a person who has beaten you and again reconcile. Yeah. Because for physical abuse, violence in a marriage is what probably would lead someone. Because as much as God hates divorce, again, I don't think he would want you to die in that marriage. Yeah. Where you're being battered, you're being beaten, someone has gone actually physical, and you're still there because you say it for better, for worse. If they're not things that you can talk about and resolve, even with the help of a therapist or a counseling psychologist, I think it's healthy to take a break. Then if you reconsider coming back, it's your decision, but have as much as possible the information you would require. Yeah. So then even as you go back to that marriage, you'll be informed. You can make informed decisions out of all the information that you'll have gotten, maybe from the psychiatrist, like he says, the counseling psychologist, and any other support that you will get. Okay. But physically, then yes.
Physical abuse for you is where you draw the line.
Exactly.
Okay. So we want to wind up. Pastor Emmanuel, do you have a parting shot? I normally like to ask.
Yes, my parting shot is King Solomon says that to get riches, to fill your house with good things, it's important for you to have knowledge, to have understanding, and to have wisdom. And I think we constantly have to seek knowledge about the institution of marriage. We constantly have to have understanding about what that means. And then wisdom is the application of that knowledge. And it's my hope that as you do that, you'll find lots of prosperity within the institution of marriage. I mean, we do that for our careers, constantly going for different things to get us better. But for marriage is the one place that we don't do that. So my challenge to the people out there who are listening is find out what marriage is about, understand it, then apply it in your situation.
Okay. Parting shot for me, the 3 Ks: know yourself, no trust, no forgiveness. When you apply the 3, you'll have a better marriage.
Okay.
Yeah, if not a perfect one.
There's no perfect marriage. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think you've shed light on many things.
Yeah.
And many tough conversations that people should be having and are not having. And I hope that we'll provoke this conversation to go further, that ladies will begin asking for these conversations, with their spouses. Take their hubby out for Valentine's.
Yes.
And have these hard conversations. Yeah.
So
thank you, dadas, for watching us. We hope we've been helpful. And I'd like to say, have a prosperous married week for those of you who are married. And for those of us who are single, let's just go break a leg.